Hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Coach's Corner. I am one of your hosts, Leslie Gaudette, mindset and emotional awareness coach for women who are successful in business but need to incorporate more self care into their life and their business to support their overall emotional and physical well being. So that allows them to stay focused, grounded, and in control of their daily day to day activities with a little bit more confidence, grace, poise, and ease. Hello, Andy, over to you.
Hello, everybody. I love your introduction. I love it every time.
It changes up a little bit, but it's still the same.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's show. I'm Andy Lidstone, the unconditional coach. I help people gain control of their lives and their relationships through boundaries, through teaching them a unique way of setting and holding boundaries so that we can really get the results we're looking for. We can have better and closer relationships. We can really settle into who we want to be and what we want to get. Welcome to our show, and welcome to another wonderful topic, another awesome episode. And let's get into it.
Yeah, and before we start, I just wanted to say, if you've been following us for a while, I really truly appreciate um, you being one of our followers who's been like really like sticking with us and allowing us to grow in the episodes that we're bringing to you, and just bringing the content a little bit more deeply, becoming more aware of you as our listeners and what we want to share. And we always like to say at the end, we ask that you share this around, but we truly want, the reason why we ask you to do that is just because we really want to be able to reach more people, helping them. It's not about us, it's about getting the message out there that, let's just talk about these topics that might really make you feel like you're alone in the doing of life, and you don't know where to turn. And this could just be the place where you could show up weekly and get poured into, and perhaps find something that'll help you with whatever you're going through in your life, whether it's emotions, whether how you think and feel, or even again around boundaries and relationships and all of that. And so that's one of the reasons why we always ask that you do that, because we want to get this word out to more people and help them. So
Yeah,
thank you so much.
that is the goal here. We've been doing these conversations for quite a while now, and our motivation has always been to help you, our audience, our listeners, our viewers. Um, we do really want to help people with some of the conversations that they didn't know they needed to have, or maybe that they have been curious about, or maybe even struggling with. And most of the topics we pick are topics we believe that people have struggled with. They're generally topics that we ourselves or our clients, and often both, have struggled with. And so we are here to help you out. So the more you can spread the word, the more you can, first of all, help Google understand that this is valuable information that you want to listen to, um, by subscribing and liking and that sort of stuff, sharing and commenting. The algorithms like that, it helps Google understand that this is important information that you like. But also helping people that or people that might know you, um, to really connect with some of the topics that we talk about. So yeah, like Leslie said, this helps you and it helps other people like you, and that's what we're here for. Yeah, we're not getting anything out of this besides the joy of serving you, and we love that.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, so today is we're continuing our series around problem or symptom, and the reason why we're doing this, because we truly believe that there's those questions, right? We tend to think a lot of the time some of the symptoms are the problem when they're actually a symptom of a bigger problem, and sometimes we think
Yes.
a problem is a symptom when it's actually um, part of even maybe a bigger piece to the problem, but it's really an extension of a problem. So we want to like
Right.
really dive into these topics more and more. Today we're going to be talking about they're ignoring me. This is something actually, it's so funny. We've been really having these conversations about how we want to roll out these next few conversations around this topic and around this series. And for me, a lot of these hit home.
Yeah.
Specifically, this one in particular, we're just going to get right into it. So I can really relate to this. As a young girl, I remember not really feeling particularly welcomed into I guess, a grouping of friends. I
Hmm.
felt like there was the leader of the friends group, and I felt, were ignoring me in some way or excluding me from,
Right.
activities. And I'm curious where that would come from. But again, it really is. This is what we're going to start diving into. That this is an experience that I can actually relate to. I don't know about you, Andy. Have you ever had anything like that?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, most of my childhood, I felt like I couldn't fit in anywhere. I struggled to make friends. I struggled to fit in even with my own family. Like I struggled to fit in just everywhere. So yeah, I felt like they were ignoring me. I even in my marriage, I felt like my wife was often ignoring me. You know, at my jobs, I felt like my coworkers and my bosses were ignoring me. Like they just weren't paying attention to the things that I wanted, that I thought were important about me. So in different kinds of relationships, I felt that a lot throughout my life, and it wasn't until I was able to really figure out what that was all about before that all changed. Before I started actually getting some of the recognition, some of the, not just recognition, but some of the attention that I thought I wanted. Yeah, and it is a significant conversation because I've heard a lot of clients say, my friends are ignoring me, or my husband or my wife is ignoring me, or I'm just not getting just not paying attention to me, or she's just not paying attention to me, or maybe it's they're not paying attention to me like they used to, or a different versions of the same conversation. It's the same message. And every time I try and ask myself or the client in this, if it's the case that it's a client, where is this coming from? Is this because they're actually not paying you attention, or is it because you feel like you're not getting the attention you're looking for? And it can be both. Like it can be either or. It's possible that they are actually giving you less attention. It's also possible that they have nothing on their end has changed, just your perception has changed, or your perception is different. So, you know, it really can come down to a whole bunch of different things. And that's what we're here to dig into today. Like what actually is going on here when this is what we experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, for me, when you're young, especially when you're a child, it's not something you truly understand because you want to feel like you belong.
Yes.
Your friendships are everything to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially as a young person. And I think that is can be carried into your adult life because then you start thinking, well, nobody wanted me then and nobody wants me now. And
Right.
that's not necessarily a truth, but has become your truth. So it's a story that you've
Right.
been telling yourself. And so,
Right.
yeah, I think for me, it took a little bit of getting used to, as I went through and changed up friendships and allowed myself to somehow get through that. I mean, I did get through it, but I think it was tough because you wonder, like, is it me? Did I do something? Did I do something wrong? Uh, is it something they don't like? What is it that they don't like? How can I change that so that I can be accepted back into the grouping? And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this whole the it's unfortunate, and the reason why I think it's unfortunate is because as young people we're just learning how to navigate life, so we're not
Mm.
necessarily recognizing that what we're doing by creating this disconnect in the group or this void or this gap where someone doesn't feel like they belong, or that they are being ignored, we're not recognizing that as something that we should pay attention to, because all we care
That's
about
right.
is how am I going to get through another day.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting topic.
It is for sure, and especially in friendship groups, like you said, as children, we don't recognize a lot of this stuff. We don't know what's going on. We don't know how to fix it. We don't know. First of all, if we're the one feeling ignored, we don't know how to fix that. Although we usually try, we usually default to something must be wrong with me. Something must be, I must have changed, or maybe I was never good enough and I just didn't notice it before. Like we usually blame ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, like you were saying, if we're the group that's doing the ignoring or the person that's doing the ignoring, we often don't even know that. Like we don't know that we're suddenly giving less attention to this person, or that they're feeling like we're giving less attention to this person. Oftentimes, as we go through childhood, when we get into the older years of maybe the tweens and the teens, that's when we start to realize that other people around us are starting to have emotions as well, and those emotions may have something to do with my actions or my words, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as younger children, we don't know these things, and that can be difficult. So how do we deal with that, right? How do we first of all, as parents, how do we help our children figure that out? And second of all, as adults, how do we not let those experiences, those childhood thoughts and beliefs change our experience of adulthood, right? Because that's often what it comes down to, is our whole life becomes that experience, right? That's what my life was. Is I didn't make a lot of friends as a child, so I became a lonely adult. I became somebody who told myself I couldn't make friends as an adult. And it turns out that once I hit about 20 or 21, I was making friends all over the place. I just didn't recognize that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I think that is right there the key, to, I think a lot of people don't realize that is it right there, is that not paying attention that is
Hmm.
actually happening based on the old experience of what they experienced, the negative, they're
Hmm.
ignoring me or I'm not making friends, so I can't make friends. And yet you're making friends, but you're not
Right.
recognizing that you're making friends. And maybe it could just come down to that disbelief, like, oh well, they're just people that are going to pass through anyways, it's
Right.
not necessarily going to stay, it's not going to stick. So one of the things that you had written around this topic was, um, the attention piece. Like, I think there's that attention piece as well. Where do you think that comes from when someone is seeking that much more attention than maybe a friend group is used to having someone, like, because it's almost like a demand, right? Like you're
Hmm.
going out there and you're expecting like to get your friendships to like pour into you.
Yeah.
Um, like, where do you think that comes from?
Well, first of all, there's two pieces to that. Um, the piece, it's the same thing as the other story. Like, are they ignoring me, or am I just feeling ignored? Like, what's the question there? It's the same thing with the attention. Are they giving me enough attention, or am I feeling, or am I needing more attention than what they're giving me? Whether it's my partner or my friends or whatever, right? It's where is the issue, and what it often comes down to is we attention is more of a recognition kind of a subject. I'm not feeling like anybody cares that I exist. I'm wanting to be important. I'm wanting to be significant. Um, and there are variations of that. Oftentimes, it can be as little as I get no attention, or little to no attention. At home or within my friends or whatever. As I'm looking for somebody to say my name, just to say my name once or twice, and hey, come on over here, or hey, I see you, or hey, you exist, and that's important to me. And sometimes it's that we're not getting enough of that. That maybe somebody does, you know, recognize us throughout the day or throughout our lives. And if we're missing that, or um, something has changed our perception of ourselves, some kind of abuse or some kind of negative life experience, we can suddenly need more attention to counteract some of those negative experiences. If I've had a negative experience, or if I've been abused, or if I've been locked away, or I've been punished. Oftentimes, this comes up in a child who's been grounded an overabundant amount of times as a child, or in their childhood. Often they'll feel lonely because part of being grounded is I don't get to hang out with my friends, and often my family doesn't hang out with me either because they're punishing me. So a person who's been left alone an overabundant amount of time might feel lonely or might feel neglected even when they are getting attention,
Mm-hmm.
because they've had this hole in their attention meter for such a long time that now that's going to be difficult to fill up even when they are getting proper attention. So it becomes a little bit like feeling needy, like I need somebody around me, or I need somebody's attention. And often what happens is we'll call that child attention getting, or we'll call them, they want to be the center of attention and things like that. And that's what I believe it comes down to. Um, I've known a number of children in my childhood, and siblings that I have, that were labeled that way too. Always wanting to be the center of attention, and always wanting to be the middle of the room, or always wanting more attention than what other people were getting. And I think that's what it comes down to. I think it was somebody who was locked away, or had a lack of attention at some point in their lives.
Mm. Yeah, I think so too. I really think a lot of it too, when you mention siblings, there is that almost like, and it's not even, I don't even know if it's a conscious competition, but there is that
Mm,
competition for like getting the attention, getting the praise,
yeah,
mom and dad, or if you live in a single family home, like if it's mom or if it's dad, and getting their recognition and their getting their praise for what you're doing. That's a form of attention. Them spending time with you. How much time do you spend with they spend with your brother as opposed to your sister, or opposed to
right,
you? Even have going so far as this question, I think it seems innocent at the time when it's said, because they're kind of saying it with a smile, but it's like, well, who's your favorite son, or who's your favorite daughter, or
right,
like, who's your favorite child, or I'm dad's favorite, or I'm mom's favorite. And it's like,
right,
when those words get spoken, they might be jokingly said, but is there a real need to feel that way, or
right,
is there a need for the person who's hearing that to feel like that's not a truth, because that means that I'm not as important as you, I'm not needed, I'm not good, therefore I'm not going to get the attention that I want or crave. And so then it becomes more about, they become what I guess, for lack of a better term, needy for
yeah,
more attention, and that bleeds into their friendships. And then as they get older, that becomes a lifestyle.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, when you start thinking about it from that perspective, it's the possibilities are all there. I mean, the signs are there.
hmm,
For me, even as an example, growing up, I had a pretty, decent way of like making friendships. As I said, I had the one experience around one group of friends, but I think that's just it's a natural way of, I just know that's just how kids are, because we're
yeah,
learning.
yeah,
But I know that as I got older, one of the things I often would do is I would, coming from the dreaming perspective of wanting something more, of wanting something better, I would constantly think about ways that I could be harmed so that people would notice me and
yeah,
want to be give me the attention. And I never really realized I was doing that. Like even in,
Right.
like into my early 20s, and once I started recognizing I was doing that, I started thinking, well, what if I decided to change that instead of thinking all of that? Then I started believing, oh, that I was someone completely different. In fact, I was someone that wasn't even a part of my family, but
Right.
I knew all these famous people, and everyone wanted to be my friend. And
Sure.
so it's really, it's an interesting thing when you go back and you start thinking about, well, how did I used to think
Right.
around friendships and people paying attention to me or not, and how did I combat, or how did I navigate feeling ignored, or feeling not seen. I think that's part of it. So it was
Yeah.
interesting to
Yeah.
go back and like reflect on that.
Yeah. It is. It is. And again, when we reflect on it, it comes down to, was this actually the problem, or was there something deeper going on? Like if there
Mm-hmm.
was some deeper abuse, then oftentimes we feel ignored even when we're not. Or if there was some deeper neglect, or some relationship dysfunction when we're children, whether it's our parents or family, or whether it's at church or at school, or if there is some sort of a relationship dysfunction there, then often that bleeds off into our later teens and our adult life, and can even stick with us right to our later years. um, you know because there's something deeper going on. And often when there is something deeper going on, we don't even recognize it. So what is the problem? Is it the problem that they're ignoring me, that I'm not getting the attention that I want, or is the problem that I want more attention than usual, or I want, or I feel ignored and lonely? Like, what is the issue here, and how do we find out? That's really what we're here to discuss, is how do I know? How do I know that I'm actually not getting much attention, or not, or being ignored? Or how do I know that instead I'm just creating that feeling, even though I'm getting the attention, or I'm getting their time? How do I know the difference? And that's the tough question. What is the solution to that we can help people really figure out what's going on here? Is this the problem, or is there something deeper? Like, how do I even know that? That was the question that I asked myself for many years. How do I know that I'm being ignored, or that I actually have the friends, or the attention, or the lifestyle that I'm looking for, and I just don't know it? What's the difference? And that question really can help us dig into, what is the problem? Is this the problem, or is this simply a symptom of a deeper problem? How do I know?
Yeah.
Right.
I think for so let's just talk about that, because for me that's a symptom. When I was younger, like I said, it was a symptom of a deeper thing, which was I craved the attention, um, based on just, again, trauma. I needed to have an exterior experiences from my life that I was experiencing in my home. And I'm talking, like, let's just say from the ages of 11 to 14, that's 3 years.
Hmm.
And, in the home at that time, my mom had a man in the home who was abusing her. So my way of escape was to go outside the home to find the friends that could fill the void that I was missing from home, because there was a lot of trauma. And in the home, and the trauma in the home, I found that I had to really dig deep, and I found ways to start recognizing when I could feel the energy changing in the room, to kind of divert his attention away from my mother, so that he would put his attention on, focus on me around school, around what I was doing. So that was my way. But I wanted an escape from that. And I found that through my friendships. But I also, I think, found that through friendships, I became very, I don't know if it was clingy or needy, but I needed more from them to help me escape that reality.
Hmm.
And so that my problem was dealing with the emotional trauma in the home. That was the
Right.
problem. But it was also, there was also deeper. It was also went deeper than that, because then, I felt, I think for me, being the child and watching the parent allowing for this behavior to happen in the home. And I'm not by any means saying that my mother allowed herself to be
No.
abused, but I'm just saying from the perspective just like walking through the steps of a child watching a parent, and then thinking, well, why would you let this happen in our
Right.
home to happen to you? And now I've had to step into this role of almost like protector, like, okay, I
Yeah.
start feeling the energy changing, I sense it. Became very intuitive around that, and then recognizing, okay, I have a way, a tool myself to pull away his energy from her onto me to help me with whatever it is. I don't care, I could make something up, but I would
Yeah.
find ways. And I think so that was the problem in the home. And that also then came down to even like a deeper, because you go deeper, the levels, right? It
Yeah.
goes much deeper. And I can go back years from that, of dealing with my own trauma from a different circumstance in my life, a different experience. And then again, feeling that disconnect from my mother, not protecting me again, and not being that person that you can turn to and say, I need you, I want you to make this different.
Right.
And so for me, I think that was the need to feel like there was some kind of control. So I think for me, like, they're ignoring me was just a symptom of a bigger problem, which was I was just feeling like I had no control over my life when it came to my personal life. That was the problem.
Yeah.
And there were so many sub levels to that. But then the symptom became they're ignoring me, my friendships, and I needed them to not ignore me
Right.
because I needed the escape. So yeah, you can actually look back. Now, did I know all of this back then? No, absolutely not. Did I know all of this into my 20s and my 30s and my 40s? No, I did not.
That's right.
I started my self development journey 6 years ago, and that's when I started recognizing and learning about, you know, emotions and mindset and all of this stuff. And that I realized how to start looking for the questions beneath the surface that, we always have an answer, the surface level answer. Like when someone asks you how you're doing, and instead of going into it because you don't feel like it in the moment, because maybe you're embarrassed, or maybe you're just sick of talking about it, or you don't want to face it, you'll just say, I'm fine. When really there really is, there is something going on, but you're just not ready to talk about it. You just don't want to talk about it. It's too painful, or you
Right.
don't want to share because you don't trust anybody.
Right.
And I started learning about that. So that's why this became such a really important collaboration between Andy and myself to do this, because I knew about how this is so powerful to start really talking about more, because I know that there people are talking about it,
Yeah.
but I feel like you can't not visit it enough times that it's going to just be like, oh, I've been there, done that. There's always going to be people who are going to be asking these questions, like,
Yes.
why are they ignoring me? Are they ignoring me?
Right.
So so that is why we're doing this series, because we really want you to understand for yourself, not from our perspective but from your own, that when something's happening in your life, you can start asking, is this really a symptom of a problem, or is this the actual problem, and what am I experiencing? Being able to recognize that and start going deeper, because when you go deeper, even though you may not want to, you might be afraid to do it. And I know it can be really super scary to face those things from our past, because that means that we're admitting that it happened. But when
Hmm.
we can do that, we free ourselves from the chains that the past can have on us, and we can use those stories to help someone else, which is what Andy and I are doing here today is
Yeah.
based on our own experiences. So you will often hear, we will use ourselves as the examples that you'll hear on this podcast, on this, well, kind of podcast, but YouTube channels, because we want you to know that, this is stuff that we have experienced some way, whether it's through our own experience, whether it's watching somebody else do it, go through it, or whether it's through the interactions of people that we work with or friends that have felt confident enough to share with us
Hmm.
their experiences so that we can help other people. And so that's
Yeah.
what that's for me is why I wanted to just let you know, like, my experience, I recognized it was the symptom to a bigger problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And it often is a lot of these things that we bring up as problems or symptoms. First of all, that's a legitimate question. Is it a problem or is it a symptom? Because most people do assume these things are a problem. This is the problem I need to fix. I am being ignored. I need them to give me more attention. And oftentimes that's just a symptom of a deeper problem. Either you have some sort of a personality trait that's making people not want to be around you, or maybe you aren't being ignored. You just feel like you are, or something like that. Like, what's going on? And most of the time, these are a symptom of a deeper problem. And they're not always. Sometimes they are simply the problem themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I struggled to make friends as a child. I really struggled. I barely had any friends at all. And even then, I only had a friend for a few years throughout my school career. Most of my school career, I had no friends at all, and I couldn't even hang out with my family because they didn't want me around either. So I really was alone. Um, for me, the symptom became when I was an adult, and I still felt like I had no friends. But as a child, that really was the problem. I really was being ignored. I really wasn't getting much attention at all. So that it is a serious question. Is this a problem or is it a symptom? Because it can be both, and depending on your
Mm-hmm.
circumstances, it can be either or. And what we're trying to do with these videos is help you figure out: is this actually the problem? If I actually get more attention, if I actually have more people in my life, will that solve the problem? Or is this a symptom of a deeper problem? Some feeling that I have or some personality trait that I have that I could address through, some other method, and maybe solve the problem of being ignored that way. So that's a legitimate question. Am I being ignored, or is there something deeper going on? And like you said, it does come down to how we ourselves perceive it, and how can we what actually is going on. um, and how do we know? The way you can know is, first of all, how much time do you actually spend alone? um, all people need a certain amount of time alone. Now, there isn't one number because each person needs a different amount of time, but all
Mm-hmm.
people need some time alone, and all people need some time around other people.
Mm-hmm.
So how you can tell if this is your problem or a perceived problem, if this is something in your head that you're actually getting some attention, or you're not actually being ignored, or maybe you are actually being ignored and you're actually lacking attention. How you can tell is by looking at how much time you're willing to spend alone and how much time you want to spend around other people. If there's a big diversity there, if there's a big difference between those amounts of time, there could be something going on inside of you, a personality trait or a desire, or maybe some hurts or traumas from your past, and you can get help with that. um, Coaches can help with that. Obviously, therapists can help with that. But you can figure out what's going on deeper inside. If, however, they're fairly close, and I don't mean they have to be the same, but fairly close, like if it's 70-30 or less, or closer, 70-30 to 50-50 and somewhere in there, then you're probably okay. Some people need more time by themselves. Some people need more time around people, but there should be, some of both. And if you're getting some of both and you're still feeling lonely, then that's something inside of you. But if you're not getting some of both, ask yourself why. Like what's actually going on? Am I not getting around people? Am I not going out in public? Am I not phoning up my family and my friends? Or am I doing those things and just nobody wants to give me their attention? Like what's actually going on here? Ask yourself that. And the other things to talk about too is oftentimes, and this is something we talked about pretty early in the conversation, oftentimes we used to get their attention, or they used to hang out with us, or they used to be reasonably friendly with us, and that has changed. We often find this in romantic partnerships, in dating and marriage, where there used to be a lot of attention at the early parts, and later on there's less attention or less time together or less you know doing the things that we love for each other. And why does that happen? Right? What's going on here? And these are the things that we actually don't very often pay attention to, is why those things can change. Why in a relationship the levels of attention might change. Why in a relationship the levels of giving each other those lovely gestures might change. Whether it's the giving of gifts, or whether it's the touches, or whether it's the how often do we sit down and just cuddle or snuggle. Whatever the thing is that you might be craving, or that the other person might be craving, why did those things change over the course of time? And the simple answer to that is that values change. The simple answer is that either you want something different than you used to want, or your partner wants something different than they used to want, or more likely, both of you want something different than you used to want, and you haven't discussed it. Like, you haven't sat down and said, I don't feel like snuggling as much anymore. I'd rather go out to dinner with you. Or, I love that we're going out for dinner so much, but I'd rather just sit at home and watch a movie with you. Or, we used to make love a lot, and we don't do that so much anymore. Or, you don't sit down and discuss it. And values change. Like, we want something different. When we get married in our 20s and early 30s, we do things. We're a lot more active in our sexuality, in our outside world. Like, we go for hikes, and we go, walking around, and we just go on dates, and we do wonderful things a lot more. When we get into our 50s and 60s, we're more about the spending time together, and slowing down a bit, and just being together, right? Our values change. And again, not everybody changes in those ways. That's just a common and typical way. However, some people actually rather be snuggly when they're younger and active when they're older. It just depends. But our values change. And unless we sit down and discuss it, our changing values can really have a negative effect on our relationships. And trust me, almost everybody does change their values. We want something different, right? Just as our taste in food changes, and just as our taste in movies change, and our taste in music changes, our taste in what we want in our daily lives also changes. The changes that how much I want to spend time with my partner also changes, and how I want to spend that time also changes. What we often don't do is give either ourselves or our partners permission to be different than they were 5, 10 years, 20 years ago.
Mm.
We still make assumptions based on who they were when we first met them, or who they were last time they pissed us off, or who they were the last time something went wrong. Right? We often don't give them permission to have a different set of values than they did yesterday.
Yeah.
And that can cause a major difference in attention, a major difference in perception of attention. So are they giving you less attention? Maybe. Are you feeling like they're giving you less attention? That could be it too. And it all could be based on a change in values. Right?
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think that is, you just hit the nail on the head, because again, in when you first get, like, I got married in my early 30s. So my husband and I he was mid 30s, I was early 30s, and we got married. And yeah, you're right. Like, you're you're inspired, you're adventurous, you go out into the world together as this team, going out to make a difference, whatever it is that that looks like for you. For him and I, it was moving and going to a new locations and moving around to different places over these past 26 years, almost 27 years of being married, that we've been doing this. And you're right. Over the last almost 3 decades together, we have changed. Our values have changed. What has made it work is that as values changed as we get older and our wants and needs start to change because our maybe our energy levels change, maybe how we view the world changes and how we see ourselves showing up in our world changes. But we were able to like come together and start talking about like where do we see our relationship. Keeping that communication open is really important because that helps you to like have, for lack of another better word, expectation rather than an expectation but an agreement. But your expectations on your relationship when you're 20 as opposed to when you're 50 is going to be vastly different because of just time and experience. And so, how you look at life and how you want to live your life together as a couple is going to most likely change. You might both not be on the same level. You might both not have the same values, the same ideas, or the same, dreams for where your relationship goes. On the opposite, maybe someone like you were saying, what was very, very homebody when they were younger, but as they got into their 50s and 60s, became more adventurous. Now, one partner is like, yeah, I want to be a homebody. And the other one's like, well, no, I want to become, I want to go out and explore the world, because we're getting to that retirement stage of our life. Let's go out and explore. Things change. And so it's the same thing with friendships over time in groupings of friends. You might have that core 2, 3, 5 friends that you may not hang out with on a daily basis, but those are the core people that you still know where they are at in their life, decades of their lives. And you still, even though you might not see them, you might not like spend a lot of time with them, you still have that relationship. That was choice. Your values still align with those people.
Right.
So this is how, when you're in the midst of something right now where maybe you're feeling like you're being ignored, whether it's your significant other, whether it's a friend group, whether it's even at work and you feel like you're not, you're being passed over for promotions, or you're not getting invited out with your work colleagues after work activities, is maybe the values aren't, you're not aligned with them, and that's okay. We don't have to be in perfect alignment with everyone. Like we
Right.
can't it's not that we can't get along with everyone, but it's not like we have to be like buddy with everybody, where you have friendships that are on a deeper level with everyone.
Right.
It's okay to be, if something's changed in a relationship, to it, just move with it. If it changes where you spend less time together, that when it comes to friendships, that's okay. A lot of my really close friendships right now are with people that I've only really known within maybe the last 6 years.
Yeah, me too.
So is that, but it doesn't mean that there's a core 5 women in my life from decades that I've known, that I still know where they're at in their lives, how they're doing, how their families are. Do we see each other all the time? No, but we still are connected. So the point is just, sometimes it's not about being ignored. Sometimes it's just about the direction of life might have changed for a certain person, then, and it's changed for you. And so
Mhm.
how do we learn from this is really like being open and honest with ourselves first. Like,
Yeah.
okay, what do I want from this relationship? Because if I'm feeling ignored, does it, one, really bother me that much that I'm not really connecting with this person the way we used to?
Hmm.
If it doesn't, then that's your answer. But if it really does, then maybe it's something that you can start thinking about. Well, what am I bringing to this relationship? Because maybe there's a disconnect somewhere, and being okay to ask the questions, start connecting, communicate, because I think you brought it up, like communicating your desires, what you want.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
No one's in your head with you, except the other, yourself, where you're talking to yourself. You're
Yeah.
negative, you're positive. It's just you in there, so no one knows what you're thinking. And so when you allow yourself to like understand that, oh, okay, I have to actually speak out loud these words, not just think that they should know already,
Yes.
because that's not fair to you or to them.
Right.
And that's where you can start figuring out really if that problem is really a problem, or if it's just a symptom of something bigger, and where is that coming from. And then again, the ignoring piece could just be that we're different now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing that we're different, because people do life and things change. That's
Yeah.
just the nature of life. Change is inevitable. So, and it could be a change in your relationship, could be inevitable, and you have to just learning how to be able to be okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And as our relationships change, whether it's our friendships, our romantic relationships, or even our jobs, you know, if somebody's been at a job for 29 years or 30 years, chances are they've had, coworkers change and bosses change, and maybe they've gotten promotions and they're in completely different positions. And so things change, values change, and our values change. So sometimes we're feeling ignored because we want something different, right? Sometimes we're feeling ignored because they have actually wanted something different, so they're changing how they live their lives. And we don't, unless we sit down and actually figure out what's going on, oftentimes we can feel like we're just falling out of love or drifting apart, or, and that's not actually what's happening at all. We just haven't sat down and realigned our values, and reevaluated. Are we still in alignment? Do we still want time from each other? I've done this a few times in the past, 2 or 3 years with a couple of friends of mine, friends of decades, is, sat down and decided, do I want this friendship? Is this really important to me? And one of them, turns out, we're just not in the same place anymore. Neither one of us really likes the same things that the other person does. So we just kind of agreed to be Facebook friends. We'll chat every few years and see if there's any alignment there, and if not, we'll just go back to being Facebook friends. And another friend, we've decided, yeah, actually, a lot of the stuff that we used to do together has changed. I don't want some of that stuff, and you don't want the stuff I want, and I don't want the stuff that you want. But here's this other stuff over here that we never used to do together that now we like to do, because it's our values have changed. Things are different now, right? So it's it's a it really is about sitting down and figuring out what works now, and especially in relationships that we want to keep. Like if you're in a marriage for 26 years, 27 years, and you don't intend to get a divorce, then it's about sitting down and asking each other, okay, some of our values have changed. Do, you know, so we don't like the things that we used to like. One of us doesn't, or both of us doesn't, but is there other things we like? Like maybe there's something else that we want to do together. Maybe I don't want to go out and eat out at a restaurant every, Thursday night and Sunday night like we did when we were in our 30s. But maybe now I'd rather sit at home and watch a movie. Or maybe now I'd rather go golfing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, our values change. What we want changes. So it's about sitting down and having a discussion. What's my values now? And it isn't about doing that 2 or 3 times throughout 26 years of your relationship. It's about doing that, daily if you can, or at least every, few weeks or a few months, and sit down and realign. Like, where are we at now? Because our values can change on a daily basis. But it's
Mm-hmm.
about realigning. What do I want out of my life? What do I want out of my marriage, my relationship, my friendships, my career? What do I want out of those things? And when we sit down and have those conversations, we can actually, we'll find a lot more common ground than we think. We will feel less ignored. We will feel more attentive and more attended to. We'll give more attention and we'll receive more attention. We'll feel less ignored, and we will feel less like we want to ignore other people. The more we sit down and actively, consciously address these kinds of issues. And
Mm-hmm.
again, is it a problem? It can be. If your values have changed and you haven't addressed it, maybe that's all. Maybe that's simply what the problem is. Or it could be a symptom of, my values have changed, and now the things that I used to like now, piss me off or even hurt me. Maybe they're harmful. That quick wit that you used to have, that cute little humor that you used to have that I loved about you when we were younger, now actually is just insulting and hurtful. And it's your humor hasn't changed, but the way I feel it has, and that could be a symptom of something deeper going on inside of me. It could be a symptom of something deeper going on inside of you. Maybe your humor has changed; it's become more cutting and more, hurtful and intentional. It could be all kinds of things, and it's sitting down and figuring out what actually is going on here and what can we actually do about it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been really a great conversation. I know we've been trying to be really super intentional around how we are, um, making sure that we are not just going over the time. We want to make
Right.
sure we are bringing real value. I think one of the things I'd like to start doing, if you are game, is finding a way to actually give just a couple of steps that people can start doing. And I
Hmm.
think you just did. I think you just did around as far as like understanding whether it's a problem or the symptom. And one of the things that I would like to start with is um, when it comes to like, especially the part where you're in a relationship, as long as like I've been in my marriage, again, it's not an easy thing, but I think that one of the tips that I could give you, which is really it's for me, I would guess it's a common sense tip, but I think a lot of people just forget about it because they get caught up in their feelings, and that's just communicating.
Yeah.
Learning to communicate from a place of like, this is how I feel, this is what I think and how I feel, and allowing them the opposite for the other person to say, well, this is what I think and this is how I feel, and then being able to come to some sort of agreement to allow yourselves to then, okay, maybe our values, like you were saying, were unaligned, and so how do we bring them back into alignment with each other? And that
Mm.
to me is how I would navigate learning around that, like how I would try to figure that piece out. And the reason why I say that, this is why I'm giving you this tip, it's what I've recently done in my own relationship. And I think, again, as Andy has said, it's not about just doing it a couple of times. It's really like consciously showing up and deciding, okay, I'm feeling like a little disconnect. Let's have a discussion. Let's, realign ourselves where, to make sure that we're still on the same page. We're still going, we still feel the same way about our relationship and where we see it going and how we want it to progress. So for me, that would be my tip, is really learning to not only just the communication, but having those talks and allowing for both of you to say how you think and feel without judgment or criticism, and then having a deeper level conversation around that to bring yourself back into alignment.
Yeah, yeah. And my tip, because I'm not currently in a relationship, therefore I'm focusing more on the friendships. And some people in my situation might be focusing on dating, building a new romantic relationship or finding one. What I would suggest in those cases is, if you're feeling ignored or you're feeling a lack of attention, take the responsibility to initiate the conversation. And there's a number of ways to do that. Pick up the phone, send them a text, send them a message, comment on something on Facebook or other social media platforms, start a conversation. And although, especially if you're in the dating world, you're going to get shut down a lot. You're going to get a lot of people that say, I'm just not interested in, or no, thank you, or it's not about those. I had a wise person once said something to me. It's not a game of how many yeses can you get. It's a game of how many no's equal a yes, and just put in enough no's that you get the yeses you're looking for, right? So if you know that every time you ask somebody, it's going to take you 15 times to get a no before you get a yes, then how many no's are you going to rack up? Like, how many times are you going to just reach out to somebody and get a no? If you know that you want that it's going to be 15 no's for a yes, like, can you just start racking those up? Oh, here's a no. Okay, I'm like 1/15th towards another one, towards another yes. Great, let's do that. Um, just reach out, and if you are single like I am, and you're not, and it's not about the dating, just reach out to your friends. There's, again, a couple of ways to do that. Pick up the phone, send somebody a message, phone them, share something you've been talking about. We've been doing a lot of hockey talk lately amongst my friends. We're just using some of the scoring and the Tim Hortons app to keep track of what's going on in the hockey world. And we just, like, friends that I don't talk to very often, we just each other predictions today are, right. And after we record this, after we do this video, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be sitting down and doing my picks for the day and texting them off to a couple of my friends. And we don't actually talk much, but that's a way to keep in contact, right? Another way that I keep in contact is I schedule regular calls with certain friends. I make them either weekly or bi-weekly or monthly, and we schedule regular calls, like regular times at the week or at the month. I get together with these people so that I don't have to take the initiative to reach out. It's simply a part of my schedule that I'm going to have these friendship, conversations. Whether it's on the phone or on video call, or maybe we go visit each other on a regular basis. Some families get together on Sunday nights, right? Schedule something. That way there isn't as much effort to make it happen. It's just an assumption that it's going to happen because that happens on a regular basis, right? Much like our videos that you and I do. We've changed their times a couple of times, but we've been doing them for a year and a half now, or something like that. So we just kind of assume that this is what's going to happen at this time, right? We don't have to reach out and say, so what do you think about this? And what do you want to do with that? And, it's not about trying to create a connection. We already have it. So there's a couple of ways you can do that. You can reach out naturally. If you're feeling lonely, reach out to some people. I do that. If I'm feeling lonely, I reach out to my kids, I reach out to my friends. And if you have difficulty reaching out to people, you feel like it's just too much emotional effort to do that, then schedule some regular calls. Schedule some regular appointments where you regularly get together with 2 or 3 people. Whether you get together with all of them at the same time, or you schedule 2 or 3 weekly appointments to get together with different ones. I mean, it depends on how you want to do that, right? And that's what's been my secret to connection as a single person, is just reaching out and or having regular conversations with people. It helps to keep those connections. It helps me to feel not ignored and like I am getting enough attention. So those are my tips. Leslie's given you hers. I think this is a great conversation. And as you mentioned a few minutes ago, we're trying to wrap up a little bit now so that we don't start wrapping up when we hit the hour. Let's wrap up now. And by saying that, thank you for watching, and subscribe, like, share, comment, all the wonderful things that the YouTube algorithm likes. We want you to comment on our videos. We want to hear what you have to say, either about the content that we're talking about in that video or some other video, or maybe you have a comment about something you want us to talk about, or you have some questions or observations. Let us know. We are seriously interested, not just for the sake of the algorithms, but actually because for the sake of our own algorithms. We want our brains to get triggered on this stuff. We want to be talking about conversations you find interesting. So let us know. Let us know what you want to talk about. We want to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Pass
was
it around.
great. Yeah. So thank you very much for your viewing of this, whether whether you watched it live or you're watching it back. Again,
Yeah.
as Andy said, just let us know how you're thinking, what you feel. Start a conversation with us, because as you can tell, we love to talk.
We love to
And we
talk.
would love to connect with you.
Yeah.
So, on that note, we want to say thank you again, and we will see you next week on Saturday for another episode at 10 a.m. Eastern of CoachesCorner.health. We hope you have a great rest of your weekend and a fantastic week. See you again soon.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.